Hello. How's everybody doing? So I hope we're all having a great day, great weekend. This is 50 pips rocking and rolling here, 7th of December 2014. So I'm not making you trade calls or recommendations because you and only you're responsible for the trades you may decide to take. And the fact you're listening to this means you've read, you understand, you accept all the disclosures, disclaimers here on the website and everywhere else, understanding that we're just performing some technical analysis in a learning context for educational purposes only. So what's happening going into this week, guys? So keep in mind, most people expecting a quieter week than last. We did have a lot of stuff on the wires, basically a lot of info out, a lot of data out. So basically this week, keep in mind Monday, we got a bit of a slow start to the week. I mean, we do have that trade balance out of China, but apart from that, there's a couple of countries are on bank holiday. We do have some CAD data, but fairly slow start to the week. With then Tuesday, we've got some GPB and some Australian data. I mean, really, I think when the most it should start to pick up in terms of main event risk is basically we've got the RBNZ basically with a press conference and a rate statement on Wednesday. That's definitely going to be very interesting, especially since Kiwi's hovering at these lows, and everybody's going to be wondering to see if the RBNZ is going to put in, like, they're going to try and talk the currency down again. So that's definitely going to be a lot of event risk. And then the following day on Thursday, we do have, unemployment out of Australia, some Swiss data, and some US data also going into end of the week. I think one of the most things a lot of people are going to be looking at are those LTRO data coming out on Thursday, because a lot of people, talking about the fact that Draghi's still looking at those for next steps. So that will clearly be a very interesting day. So we could see very heightened volatility on euro on that Thursday. So what to expect going into the week? So what I'm going to do is just trying to mix things up a bit. And I'm just going to look at blank charts, okay? So let's just do that. We like to do that now again and again. So let's just do a mix of futures and Forex. So let's start with the equity side. So what's happening on the ES? I mean, the tricky thing here is, really, how long can we, are we extended? Yeah, sure. How long can we stay extended? Well, probably longer than most people can stay solvent, right? And as we've been saying, unless something really starts to change on the rate front, well, most likely we'll still continue to hold a bid. But if you like to look at, if you like to believe, in some kind of healthy market dynamics, even when they are behaving a bit irrationally, or where the central banks are a bit too involved for most people's liking. What's happening here? We're hovering around these 2075s, and I think here now, the big question is, everybody's talking about the end of year December rally, etc., Santa rally. I keep in mind that that tends to take place later on in the month, not really at the beginning of the month. But I think here the focus is, if we're looking at to the upside in terms of the next move, 2100, and then you're looking at 2050s to the downside, right? So we're pretty much hovering there, and what's going to give? So even though we could, even a move, easily a move back into the 2000 level would not even be close to be healthy yet. But still, I think the focus now going into the week, or at least early into the week, is how we behave around these 2075s. And keep an eye at these for clues, right? Especially early, if we can't hold above, we could easily see a nice little move back into the 2050, or we get this starting to trip stops and gain some momo back up to 2100. So I think even though a lot of people are still looking for a move back towards the 2100s, I think it looks like it's failing to attract buyers every break of these new highs, and it's looking a bit heavy, and we may see some whipsaw to the upside. But I'd still like to position myself tactically, at least for some scalps to the short side, rather than be the last one getting to the party here, especially into the end of the year. So I'm not too interested in trading this, but I'm looking at it because I think there could be some interesting potential around the 2075s. In terms of, we saw some weakness coming in on NASDAQ last week, and I would definitely keep an eye on the Russell, because the Russell's really interesting. A lot of people talk about diamond formation here at highs, but it also looks like it's having some trouble attracting new buyers here, making a run for the new highs. So I'd keep an eye on Russell for clues too this week. What else have we got? So having said that, let's look at crude. Crude, again, everybody's really focused on crude. And, just when everybody came back into, when everybody started saying it was going to die, that's when we got the little pop, very classic little action. And the big question is here, not necessarily are we going to get a move back to 100 right now, right here, right now, because I think that's pretty much out of the question for now. But the focus is it time to see some kind of little healthy bounce, and everybody's looking at those lows that were put there with that daily reversal. So I think here, if we start to take another stab down at those 63.70s and we can't get any traction below, well, then it would probably be healthy to see some kind of a bounce here. Now, I wouldn't be expecting, a lot, even 70 would be good. Then we got those 75s. And then we got that 80. Remember, on the way down, we talked about that 80, 75, and 70 as being the big support zone. So I think, previous support is most likely to continue to act as resistance here. And unless something dramatic changes, I don't think we should get a move back above those 80s. But especially if we fail back at those lows, we could easily see a move back into this area that then could show some more selling pressure. But again, the levels to watch here, I would say, is what's going to happen around those 63s. I mean, if we let go through those 63s, then I would expect 60 to come relatively quick, right? 62, 60 range. So let's keep an eye on that. And let's just do one more future just for futures. Let's do gold. What's happening on gold? So again, it's similar to crude, right? The question is, are we going to see a little bounce here on the commodity side? And I think on gold, we talked about this again. We put in this first reversal on the daily, and we looked at this as being the reversal for the move back in the 1200 level, and that's what we got. Then everybody started to get very excited when we sold off again, but then we put in a very aggressive daily close. So the big question is, are we putting in some kind of a bottom here, right? Are we putting in some kind of a intermediate bottom? Like what I would focus on clearly is we've got those lows. Then we've got that breakdown point or the support zone here, which is pretty much lining up with that 1200 level, which is likely going to be the pivotal zone to watch, and then the 1250s, which we've been talking about for a long time, right? So I think right now we're pretty much stuck inside this chop range. Look at those 1200s to be pivotal for 1250, and basically move right back down into those lows. But again, it's a bit of a choppy area, choppy range, and I'd expect to see a lot of choppy action around here unless we get some real moves on the equity side, right? Or unless something on crude, but it's pretty much going to be linked to that. And of course, always keep an eye on euro, right? We'll look at euro in a second. So that's pretty much what I'm focused on here on these futures. Let's take a look at some of the Forex pairs. I mean, Kiwi, we talked about Kiwi earlier on. So right now, the big question is, apart from the fact that we've got that major event risk with the RBNZ, that, all these central banks are loving talking down the currency. So, if they start saying, this is massively overvalued and, this should be trading at whatever, 72, 70, 60, whatever they may say, then it could start to trade very, very aggressively to the downside. But right here, we talked about the fact that it looks like it's having trouble attracting new sellers at lows for now, right? And even though it looks like it's still holding heavy and the news flow is trying to keep pressure on here, we may be seeing some kind of basing pattern here, right? So even if you just look back on the chart, you see that this whole zone right here that caught a bid back in June seems to be trying to hold a bid. Now, if we break through that, well, then, it's, again, just the tricky thing here for me is that unless the there's a central bank is really trying to talk this down hard, and they talk about a very specific level to the downside. You see, the issue here is that there's a lot of support, right? So I'm not such a fan of trying to get aggressively short into support. So what I would be looking at is, either if you're looking to get short on any bounce, or wait for any kind of weakness and hold of weakness to try and play a bit of a healthy bounce back to the upside. But again, pretty much everybody's looking at this as a short, and heavy, I just say be a bit cautious here. You know, we might get a bit of a healthy bounce. Don't forget this this daily. And again, you know, especially if we start to hold here or tonight in the overnight session, if we can't, you know, classical action would be to try and gap down and get some quick Momo to the downside this week. But if it can't, you know, we could easily see a pop higher right back into those highs. Now, I think a lot of the shorts will be more than happy to try and hold through into the RBNZ because they expect the central bank to talk it down. But, you know, keep an eye on it. You know, we could get a bit of a healthy move. But again, clearly there's a lot of event risk around these areas and with the central bank on the wires with a rate cut. Okay. Now, what else have we got? Then we've got, let's look at CAD. Actually, CAD's one of the most interesting charts for me right here, right now. And we've been talking about basically the action around the 114, right? And that's really been the fighting ground of what we call the money line, the Momo line, because there's been a lot of action around this level, clearly a very tradable zone. Now, I think most people in terms of psychological levels to the upside, you've got a lot of people thinking about 115. We have to break through that 115, go into the 115.30s. And to the downside, you know, we have the 113 and 112, which was the other big level which we talked about, right? So those are all levels to keep an eye out for. Now, I think a lot of people are still looking at this as consolidation at highs and that we have to break the new highs and fail from higher levels. So again, clearly there's risk to the upside. If you go back on the weekly, you see that the next real spike high was all the way in those 117s, right? The only thing I would be cautious of is keep an eye on crude, right? Because if crude starts to rally a bit, you know, that's definitely going to be linked to what the commodity currencies do, right? And just keep an eye on that crude, right? Because if we start trading below the 114s, crude catches a bit of a bid. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see this trading back at 113 or the 112s relatively quickly. Now, keep in mind that even if we trade all the way back down to the 112, it doesn't mean that the uptrend is broken at all, right? It'd just be a healthy little correction here on failures to attract new buyers at highs. So those are really the levels I'm walking. You know, clearly break above 115, hold above 115. That's going to be very bullish for stop hunts. And then keep an eye on how that behaves if it gets more traction or not. But right here, as long as we're stuck here, this is just a very, very choppy range. A lot of wheeling and dealing. You see, we keep on breaking above highs, but we're not particularly getting a lot of traction, right? We're particularly not getting a lot of traction every time we print new highs. So it's similar to those equities and some of the other pairs. Like, you know, we're breaking higher, we're pressing higher, but we're not attracting new buyers. Or similarly, right? It's the same thing if you look at what's going on Euro, for example. It's same kind of action. You know, it's the same chart, the opposite way around. So if you're looking at the something like the 15-minute chart, right, and we look at what happened basically on ECB day, right, we had those lows, and you see what's happening. We're breaking lows, we're pressing lows. You know, we had those, what was it, the 123.00, right? 123.00, but every time we're breaking new lows, you know, opposite to what's happening on the CAD or what's happening to the equity side is, you know, opposite side, we're breaking new lows, but it doesn't look like we're really attracting new sellers at lows. So that's something to keep an eye out for, right? And so again, Euro going into Sunday night, keep an eye on this level. You know, if we can gap down and cause some pain to the downside, then we might see continued acceleration lower. But if we can't break lower and we trade back above the 123s, then don't be surprised to see a bit of a relief rally or some profit taking on the short side. I mean, if you're looking at Euro, and we talked about this before, if you get on a monthly chart, right, you can see this fairly classical action. So if you put the 200, which we said everybody's looking at, you see that we're really strong moving into that support, and every time we press back there in the past, you know, we caught bids. So, you know, expect the closer we get to this level and the harder price is finding to attract new sellers at low, you know, expect more and more dip buyers starting to emerge here. You know, it doesn't mean it can't break lower. It doesn't mean it's not going to make a run for the lower level, but it just means that it would be healthy to see a bit of a bounce, especially if it can't if it can't attract any new sellers at lows. And that's what I suspect a lot of people are looking for going into the week. You know, that may be on Aussie, that may be on Kiwi, that may be on euro or even cable. Looking at for breakdown, some heavy action maybe on Monday, and then looking for better places to get long or basically scalp it to the long side. You know, if you look at it on the weekly here again, it's really into support. It's a very, very strong support. Clearly, even on the weekly, you know, it could easily bounce all the way back into, you know, 133s or lower, and it still doesn't mean that pressure is to the onto the upside. But what I would focus on, not necessarily there, is I really would focus on the 125, right? We talked about that 125, 126 range to the upside, and that's basically where the sellers have been waiting for euro, right? It was that previous support that then acted as resistance. So that's clearly the resistance I'd be looking at to the upside early in the week if it tries to rally a bit. And to the downside, you know, look at all these supports back into the 123, 122, basically all this range that caught bids before. You know, maybe Thursday is going to be on the day on euro. So that's pretty much where we stand going into the week. You know, let's see what's going to happen. Again, things could be a bit choppy in the open tonight. Just you know, keep in mind there's a lot of trading to be done in the week. We still got a bunch of data points, a bunch of stuff the week after this one. So again, December's far from being over. We see a lot of very interesting action. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're down or KO at the beginning of the month. Give yourself a chance to trade your month. Give yourself a chance to end the year well, and stay focused, right? So guys, hope everybody has an excellent rest of the weekend wherever you may be, whatever you may be doing, and I'll catch you guys for London Open on Twitter, okay? Have an awesome one. Thanks for listening as always. Bye-bye.